Welcome to DESY Start-ups Meet Bulb, Deep Tech Talk. My name is Lawrence and I'm your host. In this format, we will talk to exciting founders from the world of science. We will get an exciting insight of their work and how science can make our lives easier and better. You don't have to be worried. The content is easy to understand, even for non-scientists. Sit back and enjoy the view of what's possible. Welcome to our new podcast, DESY Start-ups Meet Bulb, Deep Tech Talk. In our first episode, I would like to talk to two exciting guests who have become an integral part of DESY's innovation and startup work. Welcome, first of all, Lizzy Harmstorf. You are a startup coach from the Startup Port, based at the DESY Start-up Office here at the DESY campus.
Yes, I am.
And my second guest is Denny Droßmann. He's the CEO of the Start-up Labs Bahrenfeld. Thank you for your time, and special thanks to Denny, who let us record the podcast in the premises of the Start-up Labs.
Thank you.
First of all, what is a DESY and why are we here?
Okay, I'll start. So hi, I'm Lizzy Harmstorf, and thanks for the nice introduction and being here today. So why are we here? Well, we thought it would be a good opportunity, general outreach, but also to tell people really what's going on campus from the DESY Start-up Office side and also from the Start-up Labs Bahrenfeld.
Thank you also from my side. Startup Labs is a part of the DESY campus. So we are based here on the campus and we very much rely on the work DESY does. And DESY is also one of our shareholders. So we are very connected, not just geographically, also content-wise. And for us, we are based on an idea someone at DESY had 10 years ago to found an incubator for startup companies that come out of research, such as the fundamental research done at DESY.
Maybe you can give us or me a better idea of what is the DESY. So I sometimes say German CERN.
That's quite correct.
It's quite correct.
Yeah.
So what
That's quite correct.
exactly, and why are there so many scientists?
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that over?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so first I'll explain what DESY actually stands for. So it stands for Deutsches Elektronen-Synchrotron. Is that a little bit clearer? No.
Yeah, now it makes sense.
So
I think it's good that you, as a native English speaker, has to speak German.
Yeah, I know. So in a nutshell, with a campus in Bahrenfeld in Hamburg, with a particle accelerator. So you're quite correct, a mini CERN. We've got over sort of 3,000 guest scientists here, researchers from over 40 countries. And DESY is a fundamental research centre, as Denny mentioned, and it has four main areas of research. Photon science is a big deal here. And in photon science, we have the best light source for X-rays in Germany. So we attract scientific users and industrial users, companies, to come onto the campus and to solve and contribute to some of the world's biggest societal problems. So to sort of give you a real life example, so what does that really mean? You were going to ask me that, weren't you?
Good, yeah.
So for example, we have a leading scientist called Alchemines. He's also a founder of one of the startups here on campus. And he used Petra 3, which is our beamline here, to do screening experiments for COVID research. So that's what we can do here.
That's great. That sounds great. And
maybe something to add. So I'm not a scientist, so I learned all this from the outsider's perspective. And what I always thought was very helpful image is that Petra is like a gigantic 3D microscope, X-ray based. So you have a very large infrastructure to see very, very tiny things like atoms or nanostructures. So it's a giant microscope.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's good for everyone to understand how things gonna work, and especially we are here to understand the deep tech, not just on the scientific levels, on a user level. As if I understand it, then everybody can understand it.
Explain it to a 5-year-old, basically.
Exactly. If you ask my wife, she would say, "Yeah, that's how I'm act sometimes."
That's what I request. That's what I request when I have new startups applying. I tell them, tell it to a 5-year-old. That's me.
Oh, that's great. That's I'm gonna write it down and use it for the next episode. Explaining to a 5-year-old. We will start this with this question with every next episode. Okay, so now we understood what the DESY does, what it stands for, and could you please explain a little bit more your roles and why, from an outsider view, maybe like 2 different startup offices, Start-up Labs, Start-up Office. What are your roles? What brings it together?
Okay. Shall I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. So as you mentioned before, I'm a startup port coach. So this is the partnership of institutes and universities across Hamburg and a little wider afield. And we help startups and pre-founders. But obviously I'm based on the DESY campus. So I'm primarily looking at pre-founders in the deep tech and life science area. So very much the early stage, the incubation stage. And then this is where the partnership with Denny and the Start-up Labs becomes connected. As these pre-founders grow and found, they're then taken over by Denny. In the DESY Start-up Office, which is part of the innovation technology transfer team on the DESY campus, we have a very talented team. And what makes us very unique is that we have a team of scientists, deep tech, life science. We have business experts, but we also have ex-founders all working together to help on that pre-founder stage. So anything from business model development through to financing, we can help track you on that journey. We're also supported by external mentors and partners and investors, which also help foster the growth and scalability of our teams.
Great. And then the startups switch to you.
Yeah. So once they found the company, what almost all of the startup companies that are found here on campus have in common is they need very special infrastructure, laboratories, workshops, because they do hardware. They do very elaborate things that you can't do in your basement at home, mostly. So that's why we have Startup Labs. We offer laboratories, workshops of all different kinds. So they have the right surroundings, the right place to be and to work in. And then we also start to do some additional offers like networking, like offering coachings and continuing what the startup office is starting in the early phase and continuing it in the later stages of the development.
Okay. And what does a startup qualify to be part of the Startup Labs? Do they have to come from the DESY?
They don't. They need a scientific background in natural sciences in general. They need to be very innovative. So we're using the term deep tech. That means that it's very far advanced technologically. And then, of course, some very basic things like they can't be too big or too far developed because we don't have so much space here. So usually the space restriction is the first thing that does the yes or no. And then if a startup is coming from DESY or even better, collaborating with DESY and using the scientific infrastructure for their product, then it's getting like the A+ rating.
Okay, that would be my next question to Lizzy. So your startups, your recruiting must not come from some scientist working on the DESY. Could be from an outside person with whatever idea and just need some help and some infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're basically looking for any teams, founders that could have a competency that DESY could help with. So anything in our kind of capabilities, our network, our experts, and that's any sort of deep tech life science. But they could come from outside of Hamburg. They could come from outside of the campus. We're happy to sort of look after any of those ideas or teams.
So we have startups from all over Hamburg, from the University of Hamburg, from the Bernhard Nocht Institute, from UKE, the University Clinic Eppendorf, but we also have companies from other places in Germany or even outside of Germany.
I think it's good to know that you can come here to get some help, to get infrastructure, and don't have to be based on the DESY campus before you start working with the DESY.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned the network. I think when I talk to scientists or scientific founders, they sometimes miss a little bit the economic understanding and how to sell their product. So they need network. Do you support them with this? So you mentioned coaching. You said network. So are this one of the not the main but important support you give them?
That's a huge topic. The mindset leap of a scientist to become an entrepreneur is huge. And so we do a lot of work in terms of helping with that, also complementing a scientist perhaps with another business person. That's the optimal combination, for a very successful idea or business development. So yeah, we do coaching, we do lots of trainings in the DESY Start-up Office program, which helps scientists to evaluate the risks, because risk is a big factor if you're coming from being a researcher. Taking the leap to go into a startup or do something commercial, to speak to customers is also huge. Having the confidence to have those conversations. So there's lots of training that we do to help them to sort of make that leap into a different sort of style of working.
Yeah. And it's important that you do it at the very early stage, because when you've found your company, you already need to know a little bit about basic business things. And for example, paying rent for the room you use and making this contract, it's the first step to becoming a business person, because scientists oftentimes don't need to spend much energy and thought on how much this is costing, which is okay in scientific research. But when you have a company, you need to look on, like, what is this costing? And we've found that if you ask them, what does the laboratory you need to have? Which equipment or which standards? You get a very long list. And then you tell them, okay, it's costing this much.
Yeah.
And the list gets shorter because they boil it down to the necessities. And that's an important learning curve in the very beginning, I think.
That's good that you support the startups in these cases. Lizzy, if we look at your startups, your coaching, what are the trends and developments you see in the startup scene?
Okay, so what is, I think, important for the listeners and for potential teams coming to us to know is that private investors are interested in deep tech, and it's growing. And investors really know that with innovation, we need scientists for that to happen. So that's really important to know that trend is increasing. There's more spotlight being put onto deep tech startups. What we are experiencing on the campus in the last year is much more inquiries, more teams coming through the door, which is great. So we are looking after more teams. Naturally, those teams that are coming through the door are also integrating more AI solutions. So we're seeing a boom in the number of teams that are pitching that are integrating AI within their solution or their product. And what is also exciting is that we're seeing more female founders coming through the door, and we hope that trend continues.
That sounds good. just another question. How the ratio from pitches to startups you work with on the DESY campus? Is everything getting a spot, every startup, every idea, or is it a hard door?
I wouldn't say it's a hard door, but what I would say is that to get into the DESY Startup program, we do have a process. We do have evaluation pitching process and a technology readiness evaluation with a jury that will come in and evaluate the team. Most of the teams that don't get through, it's because the competency doesn't match our campus or what we can offer here. And then that's the beauty of Startup Port. We could then pass that team through to the right consultant at the right institute to get the help they need. So most of the time that would be the situation where we'd be able to find somebody else to take over that team. When it fits our technologies, then we are very happy, even if it's really early phase, because we have training programs, coaching that will take them step by step. So they are not expected to have a fully baked business model idea. That's what our team is there to do, to support them.
That's great. So they shouldn't hesitate. They pitch, and then you find the perfect spot for them.
Yeah,
that's good
right.
to know, I think. Yeah. And then what are your challenges? So there are coming a lot of startups. They want to work with you. So what are your challenges then?
Okay. So I've already mentioned about mindset. That's a big leap for our scientists. Money is, again, another challenge. Speaking to customers, Denny's also touched on, explaining technologies simply, and finding co-founders is some of the challenges. In terms of early stage investment, that's one of the hot topics. It is across the whole of Europe. It's finding monies that can enable these teams to build their prototypes. That's not there. Co-founders with business experience that want to match with a scientist, that would be the dream. And when we see those teams, they become the dream teams. So we would like to see more business people interested in the scientists that we have here. And yeah, simplifying your idea. So Denny said, speak to a 5-year-old. I would say, how would you tell your granny? So
That's the same.
Either or, yeah. So it's always trying to get the technology simplified so that the investor can understand it, and so that you can fully understand what your customer needs are as well. So.
And how are the future plans for the DESY Startup Office or the DESY?
Okay, so I'll let Denny talk about obviously the future plans for the infrastructure, but in terms of DESY and the scientific capabilities here, we talked about Petra 3, which is the beamline here, which the scientists and our industrial users use. There's going to be an upgrade called Petra 4. And this will basically upgrade the beamline to set world-class standards. So it will be an unprecedented ultra-bright X-ray light quality. So in layman's terms, that basically means researchers or companies will be able to investigate more. They can take more pictures per second, and they'll be able to gather more information in a shorter time. So in the future, obviously, the capabilities of what we can provide will be much more enhanced. Just touching on a few of the programs that we offer, the Startup Factory is an application that's currently in pilot at the moment for the Hamburg metropolitan region. We're very excited, and hopefully that would be a big win for Hamburg. It will help to complement the current offers that we have in Hamburg, but to help with this sort of valley of death that startups experience. So bringing more sort of accelerator partnership, connecting to mentors, investors, and so forth. And there is an event at the end of September called Lab to Market, which is one of the pilot events where you'll be able to see this kind of connecting between science and entrepreneurship. So we keep our fingers crossed. The last thing from my side in terms of the programs we offer at the DESY Start-up Office is we have two different programs, Future Innovators, which is very much that curious early stage program. It's supported by the Helmholtz Centrum. And this is helping the scientists who are coming through their PhDs and doing their research to spot opportunities that could be commercialized. And that's really important for our sort of pipeline of growing startups. In complement to the Future Innovators, we also have a DESY Start-up School, which has been really successful in incubating scientific service companies. And we're looking to expand that school more into a tech product area. So lots of things are developing in terms of creating this entrepreneurial spirit and learning so that more scientists can come through our door.
It's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, yeah.
Sounds right. Like a lot of investment as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Denny, from view of the Startup Labs, what are the challenges for the startups you see in the coming years?
So we work more with the companies that are already found. So naturally, we work also with companies that are going into the scaling phase later on. So that's more the topic we work with. And there, it's important to have the right financing, which is also not so easy. They usually underestimate also the time it needs to find the right investor, stuff like that, and also have the room for scaling. So that's our expertise, the infrastructure. We can't keep up with the demand. So we're developing new projects, but we can't do it fast enough. And we need more space for the companies to grow into. That's going to be an issue for the next decades, I guess.
Yeah.
Because if you do it right, and every startup you foster in this program at DESY, they may start with one room of 20 square meters, but after 10 years, they'll need 500 square meters. So they grow exponentially. And so should the space we offer should grow as well. But so far it doesn't. So that's going to be a huge issue.
Yes,
but we also have solutions for that. We have projects on the horizon, but I think they will not be sufficient on the long run.
So you're looking for a bigger location?
Well, bigger locations, but the thing is, since the rooms are very specialized, you have very special needs. You need floors that can carry a lot of weight. You need special ventilation systems, humidity control, a lot of electrical power. That's all stuff you don't usually have in a regular office building.
So that your future plans are just offering more and bigger for the startups. So you want more startups located in the labs and offer them whatever they need.
We want them to grow here because we foster them here. They're founded here. Oftentimes they make their first steps here, and you don't want to leave your kids and send them off to the world too soon.
Until they get annoyed. Okay. Any other things you want to share with us of the future plans of the Startup Labs? Something you have on your mind?
Yeah. So, for example, next month we're going to overtake another building. It's called Tech Hub. So it's roughly the same size. So we're going to double the amount of square meters we're operating or managing. And that's a very good step. That building is focused on life science, biotech, medtech. So some of our companies from Startup Labs that have made their first steps here are growing into the new building, taking almost like full floors there, lots of square meters, and making the next step. And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to set up. There's 2 more buildings in the process of planning, or actually currently procuring the contractors. And by the end of the year, we're going to break ground for the DESY Innovation Factories. There's 2. Number 1 on the DESY campus centrally, and number 2 next to the Tech Hub building, a little further down the street from Startup Labs. And these buildings will have different focus areas. So the DESY Innovation Factory 1 on campus is going to focus on the very early stages, the pre-founding, the tech transfer, so getting the idea out of the lab, scientific lab, into the market, or making it ready for the market, developing products, very early stage, having collaboration projects from science and industry, all that stuff is supposed to happen there. It's going to be the biggest building of all the infrastructures we have, with roughly 5,500 square meters of lab and office space. So pretty huge and fully equipped. I always call it that's the nerds playground. So, and all types of laboratories, optical laboratories, electronic workshops, mechanical workshops, all types of 3D printing up to metal 3D printing, biological labs, chemistry labs. So you can do anything you want in there. Not anything, but a lot of things can be done there. And you can develop your idea there. And then you have, for the next steps, you have Startup Labs, where you do the startup phase. And in the later stages, when you go into the scaling phase, there's Div 2, DESY Innovation Factory 2, and the Tech Hub. Tech Hub focused on life sciences, DESY Innovation Factory 2 focused on the physics part. So dry laboratories, optical labs, quantum technologies, stuff like that. So the overall idea is that for each step of the way, you have the right infrastructure offer. So each type of laboratory is offered with specific adjustments to this step of the development. Early stage, you have equipped rooms, very flexible and shared infrastructures. And then later on, less equipment, more individual rooms. And in the last step, you have bigger opportunities like you get whole floors for 10 years, longer perspectives, that sort of stuff.
Sounds amazing. I don't know if I really get everything right. But sounds like whatever idea I have, I can do it with the Startup Labs. If it's something, whatever I need, a laboratory.
Yeah. And I mean, this all, the core of all this is DESY. The DESY Innovation Factory is a huge project that DESY got through and got the financing for. And this structure was developed while I was still working at DESY before this, or while I did the Startup Labs building process. So once you come in here into this ecosystem, you should not have to leave. That's the idea. Because, of course, in the end, it's also an economic question for Hamburg. Keep the companies here and keep the knowledge here, keep the innovation here. And that's where DESY also benefits. A lot of the startup companies we have here are working together with DESY, developing new stuff that is used in science. So we do a lot of products here that are used in the scientific world. So it's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street.
That's great. So our time is running. We're just
okay
looking at the clock. So in the end, just if we jump 1 year in the future, and the end of 2025, if you look back, what would be great? What would your targets that you have reached for you when you say, okay, this was a successful year? Maybe we can then do another podcast and listen to it and see if it matches.
Sounds like a performance review. Okay, from my side, I think there is a momentum building at the moment with all these different programs, as you touched on before. There's so much on offer. Also, all of the things that Denny's team are doing and the great partnership that we have with Denny's team. So I guess if I look to, is the end of 2025? So you're giving me a year and a bit. Okay. I would like to see more flow of scientists, more brilliant minds being connected with business people, more business people realizing there is a great opportunity here, and to have some exciting investors that have come into this ecosystem and see what we're doing. The important thing for me would be that we get better at talking about the impact. So helping our scientists to actually say, this is what it's really doing. And if we can, by the end of 2025, start helping Denny fill all of the buildings that he's got future planned, and have these really great stories to tell everybody about and to get those exciting investors, that would be a great achievement.
Denny, for you? Is it the full buildings?
Well, the building we're taking over next month, that's hopefully completely occupied by that time. So currently we have 27 startups in our ecosystem, and it would be great if we could double that in the next year or two. So to get up to 50 startups here located, that would be great. And
okay, thank you. In the coming episodes, we will present startups from the collaboration between the DESY Start-up Office and the Start-up Labs, and explain to lay people how their innovation will influence our lives. So stay tuned. I'm really looking forward to it, to understand it as a 5-year-old. And so thank you, Lizzy. Thank you, Denny, for your time and having us here.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much.
Thank you.